All right, so you got a big idea, right? Chances are you probably want to start a YouTube channel, a podcast, maybe you want to write a book, or even start your own business, right? You got the idea, you're starting to do the work, but now it's time to pay the manufacturer or press publish or submit your articles to an editor or audition, whatever the case may be, and you pump the brakes. You're like, I don't know, because it's just not perfect. So you take it back to the drawing board, right? You proofread things, you let your mama hear your podcast episode for the 50th time, you re-render stuff and re-edit, and then, okay, it's time again to push publish, hit record, share the document, and you stop. And the cycle continues and repeats, and you spiral into stuckness, right? You just get stuck. You stop going after your goals because you're waiting on perfection. You're waiting on the perfect time, the perfect amount of money, the perfect amount of supporters, followers, subscribers, whatever the case may be. And you're just not doing the doggone thing because you're afraid, right? And I get it. I've been there a time or two. And so has today's guest, Thompson Payton. She is a good girlfriend of mine, and she's also the new author of her new book, Stop Waiting for Perfect. This is all about stepping out of your comfort zone and into your power, okay? She's coming on the show today to talk about her book, and I thought the timing was perfect because I just did a video, you can check it out up here, called Embracing Being the Beginner, and how it can be cringy to be the beginner, but that's the only way to get to greatness. I figured talking about not waiting for perfect would align with that perfectly, right? No pun intended. But today she's going to be talking about the imposter syndrome, just how we're addicted to perfection and how it can keep us stuck, and why we don't go after our dreams, and how to just do the messy version. So if you've been, in land of perfection, not taking the leaps of faith, then today's episode is for you. Now, who is Thompson Payton? She is my good friend. She's also an award-winning journalist. She currently writes for Fortune magazine. You might have also seen her on CBS Mornings when Miss Gail Honey sent up on her show doing her doggone thing, looking fabulous. She is the mom to a beautiful little girl, and she is a beautiful wife to her hubby. So y'all, let's jump on into today's conversation with L'Oreal and I, just talking about imposter syndrome, being a beginner, feeling cringe when you're trying to do new things, and how not to let it keep you in your comfort zone. My name is L'Oreal.
Hey girl, how are you
doing? I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm excited for this conversation and to
chit-chat. Yeah. Girl, you have been on a roll. I met you back in the day when you were like, LT in the city. I have my blog. Mm-hmm. I write for a national publication. Now you're on TV, a published author. And let's just talk. Let's get into it. So you just released your new book. I love the cover.
Oh, thank you.
It's called Stop Waiting for Perfect. Step out of your comfort zone and into your power.
Yes,
baby. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll start unraveling some of the goodies that's in the book.
Yes. So my name's L'Oreal. That's like the makeup. I'm a newly published author as of Tuesday, August 15th. As you mentioned the book earlier, Stop Waiting for Perfect. And career journalist, been doing this for about 15 years or so, mostly in the lifestyle, health, and wellness area. And I also have a newsletter that comes out every Wednesday, a motivational newsletter, a podcast, the LT in the City podcast. So I'm just trying to, get on my Oprah and Issa Rae with the whole media empire over here is the long story short. And I live in Evanston with my husband Jeff and our daughter Violet.
Yay! I love it. And empire you are building. I've had your book for a couple of days, and I sent you a screenshot. It was nothing but highlights. Like
I love that.
Yes. How do you know my whole story? I struggle with perfectionism and imposter syndrome. And what stuck out to me, L'Oreal, is that you have all of these laurels and accomplishments, right? You listed a few. I'm a published author. I got my podcast. I got this. And you still struggle with...
to this day.
And it's a quote from your book. It says, self-doubt knows no accomplishment it can't undermine. And it just got me to thinking, like, girl, you're doing well. When does the inner critic ever let up and give you a break?
I don't know that it does. And it's
Okay.
interesting because on Monday, as I was getting my makeup done and Gail came to check on me and she's like, so is negative Nancy in the building? Because that's what I named my inner critic. And I was like, yes, yes, ma'am, she is.
Yes, yes.
And it's so interesting because I am literally the textbook definition of imposter syndrome, like high achiever, lots of accolades, and still that self-doubt creeps in, that self-negative talk tells me that I'm not good enough or I don't deserve to be here. And even as I was writing the book, it was like, my goal here is not to, I mean, yes, if someone reads it and they're like miraculously cured of imposter syndrome forever and ever, amen. Amazing.
Hallelujah.
Yes, they should write the sequel. But the goal really for me, because as I mentioned, like I'm going through this too, I'm still experiencing it even now. And so the goal, the book is to help shorten that spiral that we can all find ourselves traveling when the insecurities get the best of us, when the negative self-talk is getting really loud. And so the book shares tips and tricks that I've learned and used myself. And even now still, especially this week, launch week has been a whirlwind. And I always, I look into social media and I see, okay, well, this person, we have the same pub date and they got that press hit or this thing in, or they're invited to that festival. Why wasn't I? Like, it doesn't end, to answer your question. I don't think it ever ends. And what I have noticed, though, is that the spiral is getting a little bit shorter. So instead of like spending several days in self-pity and wallowing and self-doubt, now it's like maybe an hour or two that I'm kind of like, okay, I'm feeling bad for myself. And I'm getting back into the habit of gratitude and writing down what I'm grateful for. And that helps give me some perspective as well. And lastly, what my mom has always told me, what's meant for you won't miss you. So I try to keep that at heart as well and remind myself my journey as an author, as a writer, as a mom, whatever, is going to look different from somebody else's. And that doesn't make it better. That doesn't make it any worse. It's mine and it's personal to me. And so I just got to trust God and everything that is going to work out, and that the opportunities that are meant for me aren't going to miss me.
Oh, girl, you said a mouthful. Like, I don't even know where to start. But what really stood out to me is the fact that, like, you're looking to the left and looking to your right. We're sort of kind of in the same industry. You, Natalie, Taylor, like, we got friends. Y'all been pumping out books. And you know how, like, you're proud of your friends and happy for them?
Yeah.
But you're secretly like, well, Lord, is you coming in my neighborhood? Because what is going on? And what I've always done since starting my creative entrepreneurial journey, I'll be like, well, I don't want to be jealous of anybody because that's nasty, like that word.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not going to follow anybody. But then it's just like, but you have to build community, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you gave us a few tips about just like staying present and doing like your gratitude, like take some time to express gratitude. What are some other tips where you kind of have to network and be present and you want to build friends in your industry, but you also a little jealous, like just a little?
That's okay. Like, I think we need to start normalizing jealousy and make it not this nasty thing. Like you said, we will hide in the corners, we'll cry at night into our phones because we see so-and-so doing whatever. And I think my first experience in being very open and honest about that is with my friend Pam, I write about in the book. She published her book before I did. And I saw this greeting card at this bookstore in Oak Park. And it was like, I'm 97% happy for you and 3% jealous. And I was like, finally,
this is the
a card. Because it's true. We're happy for our friends and we're really proud of our accomplishments. And if we say that there's not part of us that's jealous and that wants what they have, we're not being honest with ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to share our full humanity and experience that breadth of humanity. We rob ourselves of that experience. And so being honest, and of course, you have to judge, is your friend ready to hear that, right? Like, are they secure and confident enough to receive that? Is there a safe place for you to be yourself? And I'm really grateful that Pam is that person. But yeah, tools, other tricks that I've used. I'm a big fan of the mute button. I will mute somebody in a heartbeat on social media, and it's no shade. It's no shade. It's like, I'm happy for you and I'm cheering for you from afar, and I want to protect my peace and my timeline. And so I need to remove this for now and maybe forever. And there's no shade in that too. Like, the unfollow button and I get along really well. And just being like, okay with that and not beating yourself up over it because you're not 100% happy for someone all the time. That's unrealistic. That's not life. That's not letting you be the full human that you are. And something I rely on a lot to kind of remind myself of the boss that I am. Like, I have my feel goods folder, and my email inbox, both at work and my personal inbox, a folder in my phone as well with screenshots of DMs and texts of people telling me how my words have helped them, how something I've shared has helped them feel less alone. And so those little reminders I turn to when the self-doubt starts to creep in, when negative Nancy gets a little bit loud. And I'm like, okay, I've got this. It looks a little bit different from this person, that person, that person. And that's okay, because there's someone out there who needs to hear your story from you. They may not follow all those other people, and they may not know,
Right.
what their books are about or their stories or their podcasts and whatever. I just have to really firmly root myself in my Scorpio twin, Tracy Ellis Ross, as she says, there's enough sunshine for all of us. And so I have to believe that.
And it's so true. That just kind of stunned me, because I love Tracy Ellis Ross too.
Girl, she is goals.
Girl, just like, can I please be like her? But we're all Scorpio, so we got the same kind of
same energy.
But you know what? Once in your newsletter, you talked about how jealousy could kind of be a gift and inform you of what you truly want. And the screenshot I sent you almost had me in tears. Like, I was about to cry, because you were just like, let's go back to your childhood and figure out, what do you want? Because the inner imposter, like, you'll be like, I want to come out with a stationery company. I want to write my own book. I want to start your YouTube. And you feeling pumped up and great about it. Like, okay, I'm about to. But then she'll be like, you're not good enough. You speaking Spanish. You too ghetto. You did it. So it's just like, first of all, and so with her doing all that, you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't do the YouTube. Maybe I should, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I guess my question, now that I've spiraled and got myself out of my head, into my head, one is just like, how do you reconnect with what it is that you truly want, and not be like, oh, she got a book deal. Girl, you don't even want a book deal. You know what I'm saying?
Girl.
And first of all, and secondly, like you said, just letting jealousy inform kind of like your next steps. I think I got that out. That was hard, y'all. My brain was like,
but I followed it. I was like, yep, nope, that makes sense. I got it. It's interesting. And there's a part of the book, and I wish I could include the picture, because I see it so vividly. It was like summer, I forget what, Olympics, where there was Michael Phelps and this swimmer from South Africa. And I'm from Maryland, so I got to represent the home team, And you see Michael, he's locked in. He's looking at the finish line. There's just in the zone. Yeah. And then the other swimmer turned for a split second, right, to look and gauge where Michael was in relation to where he was. And he ended up losing the race. Now, was it because of that? I don't know. But I know these matches are usually decided with fraction of a second and everything. So I have to imagine it certainly didn't help. And I take that same philosophy into my life and my work as well. Keep your eyes on your own paper, slay in your lane. Don't get distracted by what everyone else is doing, because that'll take your attention, your time, and your energy away from your goals and what's meant for you specifically. And it's very hard with social media. You can see everyone's highlight reel at all times. And what you end up doing is comparing that to your behind the scenes life, because the mess that you have and what you're going through. No one's putting that on social media. It's always the wins, it's the promotions, it's the engagements, it's the babies, it's the house, it's all of those things. And so when you are in your waiting season, it can be really hard to see someone else in their winning season. Okay, right? The waiting season, it's tough, and it's hard, and it will challenge you in a lot of ways. But yeah, to your point about you're pumped about the ideas and the things that you want to do, and that's literally why the book is called Stop Waiting for Perfect, because you have to do it when you have that momentum and that excitement around it, when the energy is fresh and the ideas are flowing, because you allow yourself to get hung up in perfection and waiting for that perfect moment. And I'm gonna, it doesn't exist, because perfection doesn't exist. And if you keep waiting for that perfect moment, you're going to be waiting for the rest of your life, and you will rob not only yourself of the opportunity to do amazing things and put great things out into the world, but then everyone who is waiting for you to do that thing is going to be missing out as well. And so then what's the point? Right. You're going to be like, okay, God gave you this gift and now you're wasting it. And now other people can't benefit from it because you're over here waiting for this perfect checklist and to have all your proverbial ducks in the row. No, it's better to get started now, do it messy, do it afraid, but just do it, because you can always make something better. And like I wrote in the book, you can edit bad, but you can't edit nothing. So you have to put it out there, and then you can tweak and reiterate and improve and everything like that. But first you have to hit send, you have to hit publish, you have to do the thing and do it with the fear, because that's not going to go away either. If you're waiting for like this fearless moment to come along, ain't gonna happen. So
You know
do it
what, to
now.
your point, yeah, I was asking like, how can we cure ourselves of the inner critic? And it's like, she isn't the enemy. He, they, the, you know what I mean? Like, there is not a bad device. She's just as afraid as we are. Like you say in your book,
Yes.
like she's just like, oh my gosh, I remember, you know, you tell a story. I love it in the book about like when you were a little girl and you wrote like a little story, and dad was like, well, put that on your reading list. You're like,
Right.
I'm not an author.
I
And
can't do
you
that.
literally having like a visceral like reaction, like
Yes.
I am not an author.
Mhm.
And it's not like she's like just wants you to be damned to hell forever and never, you know, explore your greatness, but
Yeah.
she's literally scared for you. And
Right.
what I love is that in the book you wrote the cutest letter to your inner critic. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because I'm like, I need to use this. It says, dear, insert inner critic's name here. Mine is Jessica. Mine is my name. It's been quite the journey, hasn't it? We've had our ups and downs, but you've been by my side from the beginning. I really like that part. Like, it's not all bad. Sometimes she's really like, hey, I know we just wrote this book, but don't you just want to go back and edit a little bit? You know what I mean? So how
Yeah.
do you know when she's being helpful and when it's starting to get harmful, you know?
Now that's a great question, and I love it, and it's so true, because as I was narrating the audiobook, I was like, oh, I want to change that, I want to change, and it was too late. You can't go for now. If we write another edition, then yeah, I was like, it's done. But that's the thing, it's done and it's imperfect, but done is better than perfect, is what I have to keep reminding myself. And as for the inner critic, you know, I try to hear her out a little bit. I'm like, okay, what you got? Like, where's this coming from? Where's the origin of this fear, and whose fear is it anyway? Like, is it truly mine? Is it my mom? Because she, you know, wanted me to have the good government job with benefits.
Maybe
like,
that retirement lined up.
Right? They're all about that pension life. And it was like, no, Ma, I'm a creative. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what brings me joy. This is my purpose in life. And I really need to live into that. And so it's just kind of like getting quiet, getting still, figuring out where's the fear stemming from. Is it mine to own anyway? Because sometimes we allow that inner critic, you know, it could be actually a parent's voice, a partner's voice, a friend's voice. And it's the same thing, right? They still want they have your best interest at heart, most of them. And they want to keep you safe and in that comfort zone. But as we know, the real magic in life exists outside of that comfort zone. So we have to, you know, like, thank you all for your service and your concerns. I hear you. And this is still really important to me. And it's important that I do it. And I'm going to do it with or without your support. I would really appreciate your support, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so I would just appreciate you cheering me on. And if you can't do that, at least like cutting back on the negative criticism, because it's not helping me, and setting that boundary. Yeah.
Oh, the boundaries. And, you know, I've been kind of learning to like be protective of what I share, because people unknowingly project fear onto you just because they're trying to be a good husband, a good friend, a good, you know, whatever the case may be. So I definitely agree with you on that. So let's talk a little bit. You kind of mentioned it a couple of times about being your authentic self, or knowing I'm a creative. This is my purpose. There's a part in the book when you talk about camouflaging, though, and that's the part that really stood out to me, because, baby, I was a chronic camouflager, and you basically explain it as like, oh, okay, we all laugh and I will laugh too, you know, like, or, you know, being the only Black girl in a school with white people, like, okay, I got to put on my preppy girl voice. I got to acknowledge the Britney Spears part. How do you tap into your authentic self and drop the camouflage and drop the perfection act? Like, how do you get back to you when you don't even know you? You know, like, you've been camouflaging so long. It's like,
who am I? No, and that's a really important reason why I included. There's two pictures of little L'Oreal in the book. One is of me with my sister, and I'm probably about 3 years old, and I have this spiral bound notebook in my lap, because like when people ask, well, how did you know you were a writer? How long you been a writer? And it's like, that's all I know. Like, that's literally like out the womb from the beginning. That has been my thing. And then another picture of me a little bit older in this princess outfit that my mom made for me for Halloween. And it's so cute. I'm like, I think of her. I think of that Lord. Let me try this again. little L'Oreal when I'm feeling a lot of fear, when I'm trying to remember, okay, who I am, who was I before the world told me who to be, especially as a young Black woman, and thinking about who did younger me need. The reason I went into journalism specifically is because I read a lot of the teen magazines growing up, and they all had Brittany and Christina. And I'm like, okay, if they have blonde hair, blue eyes, and big boobs, and I don't, what does that mean? Like, I literally remember praying to God in 7th grade, like, can you make me white like Britney Spears so I can be beautiful? You know, and that breaks my heart. Like, and I have so much empathy for 7th grade L'Oreal because I didn't know Black girl magic then. I didn't. Grant, that's no like slight to anyone who raised me, right? Like my mom, obviously they all like did their best, but they weren't reading the magazines that I was reading. They weren't consuming the media that I was consuming on such a regular basis. So when I got to high school and I was like, I like writing. I'm good at writing. And I was editor-in-chief of my student newspaper. So I wrote a lot and I wrote columns and it resonated with my classmates. And I was like, I think we might be onto something. Like, let me, and the goal then was to be editor-in-chief of a teen magazine so that I could be the change that I needed and be that person. And so obviously not editor-in-chief of a teen magazine today, but have found other ways to live into that mission and to really be who younger me needed. And so when I'm seeing now even some comments from like mother and daughters and about the book and different interviews that I've done, the New York launch we had, there was a mother-daughter duo and the daughter was asking questions and I was like, okay, like this is it, right? Like I can't go back in time and help, 16-year-old me, but if I can help another 16-year-old Black girl feel more confident to like know that perfection is not the goal, that's not the answer, it's not going to save you, right? So it's better to be your full, authentic, vulnerable, messy self. That's it. That's the goal. That's worth it.
You're doing it. I almost cried just seeing you and Violet, like as she was helping you sign the book.
Yeah, right.
It's like, gosh, you're in your purpose, L'Oreal. I hope you don't ever doubt that. And I know Nancy be popping up, but girl, tell her to right there.
Yes.
You know what? To stay on the through line of dealing with racism, you were talking about how the quote that all of us Black folks have heard, you got to be twice as good as them to only get half of what they got. And that's how perfectionism tends to spark in particularly Black women, right? We got to get A++++++. We got to be like more articulate. You can't have tattoos. And then for me, on top of being Black, it was also a Christianity layer to it. Just like, well, what would Jesus do? You got to turn the other cheek. So it made me try to overachieve, like constantly overachieving, but also kind of quieting my voice because it's just like, turn the other cheek. Don't be too loud. Don't be too ghetto. So like, how do you have a standard of like excellence for yourself, right? Like, I do want to make sure I cross my T's and dot my I's without it slipping over until this like perfectionist thing. But you have to acknowledge it because you're Black. Like it's so many layers.
It's so layered.
So how can you be messy when society is like, oh, she ghetto? Oh, how can you be your most authentic self when it's like, well, I like neon green nails, but they're like, no, like
tone it down.
It's hard.
It's a fine line, and there's a scene I remember vividly, and I write about in the book where I was interviewing for a summer camp in middle school, and had to dress up in my Easter's finest, right, with this whole dress and cardigan and pantyhose in the middle of Baltimore summer. Like, girl, it's humid as hell out there. Like, why are we doing this? Had a little portfolio and everything because my parents, without saying as much, definitely raised me and my sister in that twice as good, half as much kind of mentality because that's what they knew. That's what their parents did. That was the Black American way. And it certainly served me, right? Like I got into the camp, I got into the high school I wanted, which got me into the college, which got me the internships, which got me the job, which gets me the book deal. Like all of these things like kind of accumulated into themselves. And at what cost though? There was burnout, there is depression, there is stress, there's anxiety, and there's all these other things. That's the flip side of, the twice as hard, half as much as you're putting your work and your productivity and all your worth into that and like diminishing your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. And I've, in the last several years, have kind of had this different way of thinking, this awakening was like, okay, I know that like my mom did her very best and teaching me and my sister like how to move and navigate in the world as a Black woman. And especially as a mom now, I have a chance to do things differently and almost a responsibility, right? Especially as the mom of a young Black girl. And so I tell the story too of when we were in Hawaii last year and we were hiking this volcano that I've done before with ease, no big deal. A lot different with a 20-pound something toddler strapped to your back. And we were at the next to last summit and I was just like, no, I'm tired. And I'm going to take a seat. Whereas old me would push through and be like, no, you got to finish. You started a goal. You need to accomplish it. And come hell or high water, like whatever the, like negative parts are. And this me who's kind of like relearning and unlearning, and shout out to therapy. Because in that, listen, and my therapist has taught me, she's like, when you find yourself in these situations and different challenges, like how would you want Violet to react? And do that. Right. So that's what I was like, okay. And we sat down on the bench and mind you, she had just turned 1. So she's not really like understanding right. what I'm saying. But I turned to her and I was like, mommy's really tired right now. And it's important that we listen to and honor our body and our boundaries. And even though she is too young to understand, I want to model that rest is important. Productivity isn't everything. You need to take care of your mind, body, and spirit, and be kinder to yourself, because that's something that I didn't do. I didn't see my mom do. And so there's this in real time of unlearning and relearning and trying to teach a different way to the next generation, right? Because the babies, they be watching. They pick up
every step,
everything you do, even at this really young age. And so she really holds me accountable in that way, to leaning into the rest, to leaning into a softer way of life and being that is kind of, our generation, millennials out here, we trying to break the curse and the trauma and all the things. We're going to therapy, we're doing the inner work, and we're trying to make it better for our babies and the people around us. And so I have to believe that trickle down effect will, it'll pay off. It's very hard. And it's hard when you're the first one doing something, when you don't have a blueprint or the roadmap, but we can create our own and then create this. We can pass on the roadmap to our little ones.
Yeah. And it's so funny you say that. Kobe was like crying the other day and just super upset. And Will was just kind of like, be quiet. I was like, actually, it's okay to be tired. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to express yourself. That's been my experience. Yeah. It's just like, were you silent or were you silenced, baby? I've struggled with that. So I too have been trying to just be really cognizant of like what we're passing down, because it all kind of goes hand in hand,
Absolutely.
So you've been on the press junket.
Yes.
You sat down with the likes of Miss Gail King. You call her Gail earlier.
I know her on first name basis. Oprah, you're next.
I know. But she is. I'm so excited for you, L'Oreal. How do you in real time, when all of the lights and the glitter, like you said, your makeup's getting on.
Yeah.
How do you do it? And not just run out the building, go get a bagel and cry in the car.
I mean, we want to talk about stepping outside your comfort zone, because I've done radio, I've done podcasts, but there's a little bit of like invisible layer there, right? Because you're not being seen and, across the country and it was just like very daunting. And I knew that, okay, this is an opportunity. And girl, you've been preparing your whole life and your whole career. Like you were made for this moment. So own it and walk into it. And it was funny when we got there. I actually like getting my makeup done because I can't do anything else. I can't be on the phone. I can't be stressing. And so it's just like, that's a very
a little bit
meditative experience. Yeah. But we were in the green room and I stole a moment to myself and I went into one of the dressing rooms and I did some breathing exercises to ground me. I also worked with a media trainer for a couple of sessions ahead of time, because even though I've done it for other people, I've never gotten like official training on my own. So that was helpful to lean, because especially with TV, it's like, it's 4 or 5 minutes, right? Like, and when your girl gets, when I get nervous, I tend to ramble, in case you couldn't tell, or excited, even like on both ends of the spectrum. And so she really helped me be more concise. And in the green room or the dressing room rather, I was like, all right, do my breathing exercises. I brought my anxiety spray, which is really just aromatherapy, but it's like spray. And because my therapist told me, Well, A, she told me don't spray it in your face, which is what I had been doing. It was more like around you. I was like, oh, that's good to know.
Okay.
But it tricks your brain, right? It confuses, because your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. And so by using aromatherapy in that way, then you are like, okay, now I'm switching to my sense of smell, and your brain focuses on that instead of the thing that you're worried about. So I brought that with me.
Yeah, that's good.
I struck my power pose, the Amy Cuddy Wonder Woman pose that she talks about.
Yeah.
And I listened to Beyonce to hype me up because, I mean,
why
it's
not?
Beyonce.
What else would you do?
Run the World in particular. So I only had like 3 minutes, but yeah, it was really helpful to help ground myself and get some of that nervous energy. I was literally dancing in the dressing room. And when we walked out to the studio, I was not expecting the whole studio was wrapped in the colors of the book, and the book cover was because I just thought, okay, it'll just be like in the background or like on the little table.
They're like, come.
It was
You're welcome.
surreal. And I felt a little bit like a ping pong ball bouncing between all the hosts, because it was just like, this person's asking a question, that person's asking a question, and it's a little overwhelming. It went by super fast. I definitely blacked out, and I haven't watched the replay yet. But
you haven't?
I have. I'm scared, but I have to. That was my therapy homework. She was like, I want you to write down how you feel immediately after, and then watch how you feel after watching it, because you are your own worst critic, your harshest critic. We tend to be really hard on ourselves. And that's true, because I was like, oh, there was like that first part I flubbed, and I would have mixed this up and like done that instead. And the media coach emailed me. She was like, that was fabulous. No notes. You were amazing. And I was like, oh, okay.
Isn't it funny? And I watched it and I couldn't even tell you were nervous. That's so funny how like it's an internal battle that no one knows about, because you were polished, you look good, the outfit was cute, the hair was caring, you know what I'm saying? And you're just like, I haven't even watched it yet.
Yeah,
like,
I'm nervous.
It's just incredible to me how the inner critic can kind of rob you of some blip, like, you'll get to it and it's homework, but it's just like, dang, girl, watch it.
I know. I will. And that's why this book is so timely for me, especially because it's not like, there's been other books I've read and it's kind of like hindsight 2020, rose-colored glasses. I have it all figured out. And this is like, no, y'all, I'm in this with you.
Right.
I am in this with you in real time. You are watching. And I had to take my own advice last night. I was starting to go down that jealousy slope, like we mentioned before.
Right.
And I was like, okay, girl, like, what would you tell your friend? What do you tell the people reading the book? Like, you can't talk it and not walk it, so I have to like check myself sometimes as well.
Ooh, that's that was gonna be my wrap-up question. Like, if somebody's just sitting at home with Google Docs open and they're like, I want to write a book or launch the podcast, or what would you say to them to help them get out of their comfort zone and just do it?
Yeah, do it scared. Find an accountability buddy, someone who is going to hold you to the reins, right? Like, set a date, tell a friend who is actually going to push you, right? Because we have some of the other friends and they're just like, oh, girl, it's fine, it's good.
Yeah.
No, get you a me, right? Like in Tina Fey, where she said Mean Girls, so like, I'm a pusher. I push people to achieve their goals. I'm an Enneagram 3 wing 2, so I'm an achiever and a helper. And there's nothing I like achieving. Yes. And what I love even more than that is helping other people achieve. So find your L'Oreals and let them know the date and the goal that you're working on. Set some, timeline, some baby steps in between, some check-ins to make sure you're on the right track. And you can adjust if you need, right? Like, the date isn't set in stone, but you want to make sure you're making progress. Progress is better than perfection. And remember, at the end of the day, done is better than perfect. You can edit bad, but you can't edit nothing. So you have to get words on the paper. You have to put the podcast out in the world, and then you can get feedback from other people. Then you can listen to it and reread it and make some changes and make it better. But you can't do that if you're staring at a blank page.
Boom, mic drop. That's it. That's it. You can't. What did you say? You can edit bad, but you can't edit nothing.
Yes.
So just do it, y'all. Just do it. L'Oreal, thank you so much for joining us. Y'all go out there and get her book. Stop waiting for perfect. Is it backwards, slower? Anyway,
no, it looks right on my head. Yeah.
Okay, on my head. I'm like, it's backwards. Step out of your comfort zone and into your power. I am just like on chapter 3 and I can't read fast enough. So thank you. And it's timely for me because I'm starting a different facet of my business and showing up on YouTube. So the comfort zone, I'm out of it. So thank you for being like my best friend in my head as I read this. And I'm proud of you. Keep going, keep shining. It really is helping the little Black girls and all of us. Even if you ain't Black, it's helping you too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Everybody.
So thank you, L'Oreal.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, how do people keep in touch with you outside of just the book?
Yeah, you can follow me at LT in the City, mostly Twitter and Instagram, or X, whatever it's called now. And my newsletter and podcast, right, at ltinthecity.com.
Thank you. Everything will be linked in the description. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Again, don't forget to get L'Oreal's new book, Stop Waiting for Perfect, down in the description box. Thanks again so much for watching. If you like today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, share, do the whole thing. And I'll be back next week with a brand new video. Bye.